Original Firefighter is the podcast and apparel brand that celebrates the heritage and traditions of the American Fire Service. Join us each week for lively discussions that aim to inspire, educate, and entertain, all in the effort to support mental health and well-being for first responders. Please subscribe, hit that bell, and follow us wherever you listen. Let's get into the show. Well, folks, it's the first episode of 2025. Welcome to the Original Firefighter podcast. I am your host, Will Peterson, and with me today is Aaron Bybee. We are going to give you a reflection of 2024 and what we look forward to into 2025. Real quick, we just want to say thanks for the support that you've given to us all of 2024, and we hope that you keep coming back, listen to our podcast. If you're listening to us on any of your platforms, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, just give us a like and a follow. We really appreciate that. Thanks so much. It means a lot to us. Aaron, how's the new year treating you?
Hey, it's great.
How was 2024?
It's good. It's a great year. Yeah. I
was it?
I know we're going to go over things, but
yeah.
You know, looking back at, well, we started this company in 2024.
I know, right?
And it's been awesome. I mean, it's been a learning experience for me. Besides getting to know you, getting to know the fire service, cutting our teeth with a podcast, you know, it's cool. It's been a really great year.
I think the interesting thing about just the podcast in itself is that we've been friends for a while now.
Yeah.
And you start to talk about things that you wouldn't normally, you know, put on the table and have a conversation about.
Right. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the podcast is it's, okay, yeah, this is Original Firefighter. We're talking about stuff related to the fire service, you know, stuff that firefighters are doing on their off days. But I mean, that opens up a whole world, right?
Oh, it does.
I mean, there's so many things that we can talk about and have talked about. I mean, we've had some great guests on the show this year. We're looking forward to some additional people this coming year that aren't necessarily in the fire service, but are, you know, really interesting people that have a lot to say that I think people are going to want to hear from.
Yeah. I think that one of the goals that we had early on was if we were going to do Original Firefighter, we had to know why we were going to do it.
Right.
And we'll get into that here in a second. But as we kind of started to figure out what that algorithm would be, has been a little bit of transformation where we realize, you know, it's not just for firefighters. It's
right.
for their families. It's for wives and girlfriends and husbands and wives and I think I said wives twice there, but you know, and then friends.
Are you lonely, Will?
I'm doing just fine. I'm doing just fine. Yeah. But then there's a circle that goes beyond, you know, and it's the friends of firefighters. I think I'd said it on a previous episode that I think everybody knows a firefighter. Yeah. And then firefighters have a whole another group of friends, you know, that are typically kind of like-minded. If you're a hunter, you go out and you find another group of hunters. So then, if you're a fisherman, then you hang out with other, you know, people that fish and things like that. So you start to realize like, you're not just a firefighter, you're doing all these other things that are very interesting to other people too.
Right. Yeah. You're a whole person.
Yeah. You're a whole person.
You just happen to be a firefighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And I think that was the conversation in the beginning was to say, why be a thing that is already personified in so many other ways, you know, through movies and, you know, Chicago Fire has made an entire, I think, Thursday night of everything Chicago. Yeah. You know, and so it's kind of
totally guilty of watching this.
Right. You know, because now there's like Chicago PD and Chicago Med.
Yeah, all of them.
I think there's a FBI Chicago or something.
Like,
I don't know.
You know, they all cross into each other's worlds, which is.
So I think the idea though was that we didn't want to be just like everything else. I mean, there is in our, you know, title of what we are trying to be original, and we think to be original. And what we mean to say is you are as a firefighter, you're doing something that the normal person would not normally do. You know, you're going into situations that the average person just doesn't want to have to deal with. That's why you exist. Right. But beyond that, you exist in another way as well. You are, you know, potentially you're a family person. You are as I said before, you might be a hunter, a fisherman. You might be a sports enthusiast. You might be just active in, your church. I mean, you might be a great guitar player, a drummer.
Right. Yep.
All these things. You could be so many other things other than just that fact that you are a firefighter, which is very special in and of itself. But what we like to talk about is that to be that whole person, there needs to be some balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, on the original Firefighter, just the name of the company, one of the things that it lends to is just our appreciation for the history and the traditions of the fire service.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're looking to support first responders in general. It's a big priority for us as a company is how can we bring attention to the fire service and first responders, but primarily the fire service. How can we, showcase the great men and women that are serving in that field,
right?
Just to help raise awareness, but then also show them like, hey, the community's got love for you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you and what you're doing. So I've been thrilled just to see the interaction that we've gotten this last year. It's really interesting to see the topics that resonate with people, with firefighters across the country in particular. I mean, we had a video that went up the other day and we're getting comments from New Jersey and Dallas. And
right.
I'm like, it's awesome. Like when else are you going to have an opportunity to talk with somebody? I mean, I get it. It's a one-way conversation, but the comments are not a one-way conversation. And if you're listening and you're not engaged in comments, I'd encourage you to just be a part of the conversation. That's really what this podcast is all about, is just getting a little bit deeper into topics, in the fire service or things that would be interesting to people that are in the fire service. So participate in that way, but it's cool. I mean, what other chance would I have to put something out that, we're hearing responses and engagement from across the country and like, oh, this is how it's going here. And this is how it's going here. And it's cool. It's a national conversation that's taking place and it's fun to be a part of it. Hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. I think there was another, clear goal of mine personally. I come from the City of Rockford Fire Department in Illinois. And, I make it really clear on the show that, hey, I'm happy that those are my roots. And I mention, a couple other departments, Fitchburg, Wisconsin, Albany, Wisconsin. These are places that I, started out at.
Yeah.
But that's just my story.
Right.
I'm one of 1.3 million average, firefighters across the country. And what I like to bring to the table is a thought of, I can talk about the walk of life of a firefighter, whether you are from the volunteer side, whether you moved up to maybe say you became a part-time firefighter, a paid on call or paid on premise type firefighter. I did that too. Mm-hmm. And then to be a career firefighter for, 28 years for 30 years actually, with 2 years in Fitchburg. And so the point being is that I just want to be able to be the sort of like the voice piece that begins the conversation. And then, those of you listening that, you hear something, you want to comment that's fine. You can help with the conversation.
Yeah.
We don't have any problem with, you can say the good and the bad and call us goofy or whatever you want to say. We don't really care.
It's fine.
Because we're not going to have everything perfect.
Yeah.
But
I know what I am. It's okay if you call me it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Well,
but we want to have some fun though.
Like you got the voice of experience in that world. I haven't been in that world for my life, but I think there's, it's kind of cool. I was talking with somebody recently who was pursuing a career in law enforcement. And he was like, man, the second I decided, hey, I'm interested in this, I started consuming so much content, listening to podcasts and just trying to get an idea of what the life is like.
Sure.
I think for the fire service, this has been that, I think for recruits too. So they're not included in that 1.3 million number that you're throwing out. So there's this whole other up and coming audience that someday many of them will be a part of that, but they're not quite yet. And so they're trying to take in this information and kind of form a more accurate picture or expectation of what they're hoping to step into. And that's kind of like, even though, I'm at the point in life where I'm not I'm not starting a second act of my life as a firefighter. It has been that for me.
You're not going to join an organization anytime.
Right, I was like, what could I do? Maybe.
But you're supporting it. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's what's great.
So for me, it has been that. It's like, oh man, this is really, I'm consuming our own episodes too, even though I'm, sitting there editing and producing these things. Right. It's like, it's been really eye-opening for me just to get a much more accurate picture or depiction of what the life is like, who these people are in and outside of the job.
Right. And you're like, they're crazy.
They are, but in a good way. It's a good crazy. It's the kind of crazy that you want to hang out with for a little bit.
Oh, sure. And I tell you what, if you want to have a belly out loud laugh, hang out with firefighters, and they'll tell you stories that, one, you'll probably not believe half of them, but they're all true.
Right.
And if there is any embellishment to a degree of any of the stories, it's just because you weren't there when it was actually happening.
Right.
So they're just trying to illustrate, this is what it was really like. The flames were really that big.
Right. I mean, we had Rich Mercado, FDNY, on here recently, and this was off camera at another time. He had told some stories. I'm just like,
right,
just jaw
dropping.
Freaking kidding me? That can't be real.
Right.
It's just like, yeah, it was just a Tuesday.
Yeah,
just any day of the job.
Yeah, and it really, and it goes far beyond. We talk about the fires and big situations, big structure fires and things like that. But that's just because, once again, like I kind of illustrated, like, that's what the public kind of sees that Hollywood puts out in front of us too, right? But
it's probably one of the most attractive parts of the job.
Well, of course it is.
Everybody wants to
absolutely
go
and
fight a fire.
We get the comments. Yeah, exactly. We get the comments, which are so accurate when they're like, yeah, but 80% of the calls are EMS, and it's like, absolutely, we know that. That is the job. Is 80% is medical, and take the medical side of it. That's including everything medically speaking that touches.
Right, yeah.
It's trauma, and it's some of the most horrific trauma that you could possibly see. And that's kind of goes back to, if 80% of the fire service is the medical side of things, and we want to acknowledge that. Well, that is the human interaction part of this service. Where the greatest amount of human interaction comes from the medical emergency side of it.
Right. And
there's a deeper conversation to be had there, which is, that's what makes firefighters so interesting is because they can read the human mind, the species of a human really, really, really well, because they're exposed to all humans.
I was thinking about that the other day. This is, I think, why firefighters are some of the, there's everybody's got their own personality, but there's some of the most bold people that I've met. And I think it comes from just having a very clear and accurate understanding of life.
Yeah.
Like, how fragile life is, but also how resilient people can be, and, what true trauma looks like, and seeing, death, but also seeing survival. And like, there's this real clear, accurate understanding. The rest of the world, myself included, we kind of look at it through this hazy lens of what we think we know.
Right.
But unless you've actually been in those situations over and over and over, it's really hard to predict how you're going to react in a situation. Hard to predict, like, what are the potential outcomes of a situation you might find yourself in. So anyway, that's just something that's been rolling around in my head lately, is like, I think that's really the med calls, even more than fire, probably what's setting firefighters up to just have this real clear, like, I don't want to say sterile, just a real cut and dry picture of reality.
Yeah, they can cut to the chase real fast.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll be even clearer about it. Firefighters, and we probably should try, we'll do our best to clarify in 2025. Firefighters also mean firefighter EMTs, firefighter paramedics, or just paramedics as well. Is that if you take that whole group of first responders, I guarantee you that the majority of them can, with very little information, they can predict if someone is about to deliver a baby in front of them, or if somebody is circling what we say the drain and going down and is probably, moments away from death.
Right.
I mean, that's what I mean by cut and dry. They can cut to the chase and go, this person's about to deliver a baby, to this person is about to die. It's that fast and that clear.
Most people go through life seeing those two events less than half a dozen times.
Yeah.
In their entire life. And you're seeing that in a shift.
So, yeah, for sure. Sometimes.
So that's, I mean, it's just that.
And depending on
repetition.
where you're at, this is why we do our best to bring in people from the outside. We've had a lot of guests from Rockford, of course. But again, our message is a bigger, all-American message, which is we want to hear from Sacramento. We want to hear from New York. We want to hear from Jersey. We want to hear from down south, Biloxi, Mississippi. Come on in.
Anywhere. Yep.
Because the conversation most likely will cross paths. Our paths will cross in the conversation. Even if we haven't met each other, we're going to be able to, talk and just say a few words and be like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's because you've seen it as a firefighter, you've seen the situation play out over and over and over and over.
Right.
You don't just go to one house fire and go, yep, that was what I was here for. It's like, no, you're going to go to many, you start talking about the medical calls, and not everybody has the exact same experiences. I in my time, when I was on the ambulance, I delivered 2 babies.
That's crazy, man.
And
I mean, for the civilian, it's just nuts to think about. Okay, you're not a doctor. You're just out there delivering babies.
And I don't have any children of my own, so I think that what happened was I delivered the 2, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, don't need to see that again. Nope.
So no,
that is disgusting.
It is, right? But it's beautiful, and I think that it's stuff like that that you go back to in your mind a lot, and unfortunately, we probably play out other events in our head a little too often as well. Whether you talk about it, whether you keep it to yourself, maybe you don't admit that you sort of replay those really, really bad situations over and over. I don't even know that you could help yourself from not doing that.
Right. Those things don't go away.
And that's kind of gets us into, I want to make another point about, the brand itself before I talk about mental health and the support we want to give. One of the things I was also looking at when I came to, when we started talking about what this company would look like, what would it stand for? And I would look around and, you and Rob Layback, you guys have been sort of in the branding business for a while.
Right, yeah.
And it's real easy to look at certain things and go, oh, yep, that brand, that's for golfers.
Right.
Oh, no, that one, that's for law enforcement or that's for military. And I kept looking at other stuff and I started looking at the fire service and I'm like, everything was so on the nose. Everything was very the Maltese cross.
Or it's all real kitschy kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a little too, kind of like everything's real kind of quirky, funny.
Right.
So we just wanted to sort of, we wanted to clearly give the firefighters a brand that they could be proud of, that they could, sort of stand behind, but also not have it so like in your face, like, hey, I'm a firefighter. And
right. Like what you got on right now. That's probably the most billboard like thing that we've got. But yeah, everything else is kind of,
but as we start to work through our process and sort of get, this idea is to just have a brand that is,
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
If you know that, what this stands for on our hat, then you kind of got it figured out.
Yeah.
To go one step further, that is what leads us into the mental health conversation.
Right.
And we've already just in our conversation so far, we've been kind of hitting on, the high notes of if you have been a firefighter for any length of time, whether that's, again, heavy in the fire service, if you're more about the ambulance, you're a paramedic, you're out there, you're still doing the job and you are exposed to so much. And there is, again, study after study after study that there's only so much that you can personally absorb and take
Right.
before you start seeing what, I start, the fissure cracks,
Yeah.
and before that gets to become this really big crack in your life, or the big wedge in your life, maybe it becomes something that's between you and your spouse, and you start to realize, like, I'm having a lot of problems at home.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure. I'm not putting the two together.
It's going to play out unintentionally
Yeah.
in a place you can't predict.
Exactly. Yeah. And so here at Original Firefighter, we're just going to kind of call it out as it is and say, you got a lot going on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I know I do, and if you can talk about it, if you can seek some help, if you need that, there are avenues for that. We want to make sure that, I made a note that I wanted to make sure that I, talked about the texting of 988, which
Right.
is the suicide crisis helpline. And, if you need it, you can do it. And if you're embarrassed, nobody has to know, necessarily. You can just, reach out and get some of the help that you need. So you can text that number 988 for the suicide crisis helpline.
Yeah.
So, that goes back to what we want to do at Original Firefighter is we want to be a part of the conversation. We want to be really upfront about it. On previous episodes, and I'm going to probably keep, beating this drum for a long time, is that we see the call volume going up and up and up, and everyone's got their statistics, and everyone does an annual report and a strategic plan, and they all show what, basically what you're doing in your hometown. But I guarantee you that when you run the numbers, they're all going to spit out about a 3% increase call volume wise, report after report after report after report. It just keeps going up and up and up. And I am intent on asking anyone and everyone and say, what are we doing about that?
Right. And it's not even, it is the call volume, but it's also the call distribution, the types of calls. So I am wondering, okay, if you get, let's just say 9 calls in a shift, and they're all fires, right? And you've got this adrenaline spike, and then you've got, your crash and all that, and that's happening. But there's also like a little bit of that reward of like getting to a fire.
Right.
Versus, let's say you've got 1 fire and 8 med calls.
Yep.
And you've still got that rush, that adrenaline spike and the drop off that's happening. But like half of those might be like, why are we even here? What are we doing?
We call those the low acuity.
Right. So there's calls, also that like, I think there's like something to be said for, this isn't what I signed up for, or job dissatisfaction compiled on top of, the call volume.
Right.
So there's definitely a shift in like, what you were expecting to do and what you're actually doing.
Oh, sure. We've actually seen those comments, on some of our shorts and the episodes where people will leave a message, or they'll leave a message for us that says, 80% of what we're doing is medical.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even higher than that, depending on where you're at. And there's a lot of goofs out there where it's like, what I thought I signed up for. And it's like, you're fighting this raging fire, and what I'm really doing, which is like, I'm mopping out the back of an ambulance. Yeah. And it's totally real. I mean, and hats go off to everyone out there in the trenches. The biggest thing that I've got, just that I can't seem to, square, is I have seen, just like anyone in the fire service, we've seen all the programs come about, accreditation, getting credentialed in any sort of fashion, where we want to say that, we're the best department that we can possibly be, because we've looked internally, right? And that's great. That's fine. But externally, from the outside, the general public, what I argue is, they're grateful that there's a tremendous fire department that will answer their calls, but we're unraveling as to what they should be calling for. And we need to be saying it much clearer, we're just in that time in our life where, the phone is right in my hands at all time.
Yeah.
Whatever is around me seems to be ultra important because I'm taking photos and selfies and videos and I'm uploading them to all these social media platforms. And therefore, everything becomes hyper excited. And the next thing you know, somebody, stubs their toe on a chair, and we're getting called, to come out and handle something that's very, very, like I said, it's not rising to the level of the word emergency and what that really is supposed to mean. I think we're just at a point where 911 it's a bucket. We're just throwing everything in the bucket, and there's a lot of it that's.
I'm going to throw out a thought too on that. Like I would speculate that part of that is a result of the complexity of the medical system.
Oh, sure.
So, there was a time in this country where you had a doctor that could make a house call, or you had a doctor that, was in the office.
Right.
Just go there. Like now, if you want to schedule an appointment with your doctor, you're probably going to see a nurse practitioner, not your doctor, or you're going to see him in 6 months.
Right.
And so I think that, I think there's a couple of things going on. People don't know how to take care of themselves to the level that people used to. So they're a little bit more reliant. And then they can't actually get access to the medical system for minor things like that. And so it's like, go to the emergency room, or if they can't get to the emergency room, call an ambulance, or like call 911. These are just like, we've kind of lost some of that accessibility, and the fire service has picked up the torch.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, and I think people see it as this public service.
It is.
Which it is, but it's like, you're right. It's not an emergency service, or it's not perceived as an emergency service.
Yeah.
It's just like, can't get to my doctor, can't get to the ER. Well, they probably have some gauze in the back of that thing.
Right.
Just call them.
and there's departments out there that are they're doing different things. They're trying, either they're trying something new, or they've already decided that they're going to implement something different than the original model, which is, here's a fire truck, here's an ambulance. They roll out the door together on anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already starting to see some of the change there too. And again, change is good. What I am driving is that the change can't just come from the fire service.
No.
The change has to be in the culture.
Yep.
And the culture has to understand that, to your point, you touched on it, but I'm going to be more clear. The ambulance is not a taxi.
Right.
And if you treat it as a taxi, boy, that's a really, really expensive taxi that's driving down the road. And I'll be even, more on point about it is, if you're in the back of the ambulance and it was because you don't have any other way to get to a hospital, you get to an ER or whatever. I'm not saying that you didn't need to go. What I'm saying is that if you're getting zero treatment, you're basically getting a transport ride. All around you inside the back of that ambulance is some really, really expensive equipment and drugs that are needed for somebody who is really in trouble.
Yes.
And that's the culture conversation that we need to get back to and say, and a little bit of it's back to basics. It's saying, there is time and place for 911, and there's just simply, no, don't, call a friend, call a loved one, or call an Uber from your cell phone, from your smartphone. You know, I mean, those are possibilities. And half the time you probably don't even need to go to the emergency room. You can go to urgent care.
I'm interested to hear from our listeners if there's, any cities or townships or communities that are like trying to tackle this in a new way or a different way. Are there like ride programs that you can call that are a public service? Are there, is there like a first line of triage over the phone? Like what are other cities doing to help prevent this problem? Because you're right. It's not, and we talked about this kind of off air with one of our guests recently. This isn't a problem in the emergency services. They're reacting to a problem in our communities,
right?
And in our culture. So, I mean, how do we go about changing that? we're not going to answer that today.
Well, just
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Here's a plan for
2025.
2025.
Yeah. Well, we do try to, we do our best to address some issues in the fire service, but we also, that we are seeking answers.
Yeah.
And there are changes that are happening. I have to acknowledge that. I'm aware of, we started using ProQA at the end of my career. Before retirement, we were getting very close to having, a nurse in the 911 center. And that's great. Again, those are great. And there's there again, that's the proactive decision making that the fire service is doing, because it realizes there is so much volume of call.
Well, and there's a failure in the healthcare system too. Then,
so you think about it, you do
throw
need
a nurse in the 911.
That's what I'm saying.
Center.
You need to stop for 2 seconds and go, man, we're at a point where we have to put a nurse in the 911 center and help with, triaging, basically, like you said, over the phone. Again, great. Do it. If you see the need and you have the ability to, get that covered and paid for, and that's a good, collaboration between fire-based EMS and hospitals, that's all wonderful. The group that's getting left out of the conversation to a degree is the population that is over reliant on 911.
Right.
For all things.
Yeah.
And we do need to get back to a message that says there's a time and place for it, and there's a time not to.
Yeah, there almost needs to be
just education
campaign that is like a, I don't know, green light, yellow light, red light, or it's just something super simple that's like, if it's, and I know you got liability, and I know that's a contributing factor too, but if it's this, do this. If it's this, do this. If it's this, okay, call 911. But like, give them a couple practical steps before that.
And this would be this would honestly be a good place that if you are listening or watching, and send us a message, and just, tell us what you're doing. Yeah. What do you see coming down the road? And just what you think about the conversation so far. Yeah, we appreciate that. One of the things that we want to just kind of maybe pivot to a little bit is that we did get a lot of stuff done in 2024 for Original Firefighter.
Who'd have thought? 3 guys drinking bourbon could accomplish so much.
Right. And that is how it started. Yeah. It did start over a couple libations, and the proverbial cocktail napkin, where you're writing out a little idea, and next thing you know, you're in a podcast room doing this.
I think most of the time, when people are coming up with a business idea in a bar, it's to start a bar.
Right.
It's not typically, you know what? Yeah. We should start a brand for the fire service.
Yeah.
But
this may be
that was where the conversation went. Yeah.
This could turn into the original, right?
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Don't take that. Yeah. No, but, and I think too, I think that when you get around your friends, you have a couple of drinks, and you start imagining. Yeah. You start thinking like, and it did come in a time where we were shifting. We had done some other collaborations together, and we wanted to keep the train going, with us, and then looking at what could we all bring to the table? You, right, and Rob Layback and myself. What did the three of us together look like? Why do it the way we set out to do it? And again, it goes back to everyone has a skill set to bring, and they're pretty complementary. You know,
in this arena.
Yeah, in this arena, all three are we're creative to a degree, and some more than others. But if you land on the right message, it feels right, and I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about being able to identify who a brand is for just by looking at it. I think that comes down to knowing your audience and having a clear insight. So that's really what drove us into this was, 32
33 years.
33 years of insight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty deep well to go to. And then also just a shared value for our first responders and mental health awareness and then, being able to take the skill set that we had and apply it to that goal. This is kind of the result or the beginning of the result.
The beginning. Yeah. So, obviously we've had, good success with the launching of the brand. We've enjoyed just getting this, the podcast going and starting to feel comfortable in that, in that skin, cause you don't just wake up and go, okay, I'm going to be a podcaster.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely, it's caught fire out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton to choose from, and some could maybe argue that the space is a little saturated, but here's the issue that I take with that statement is if you look at a podcast and you think I might learn something new that I didn't know before.
Right.
It has some entertainment value. It makes me laugh every, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hopefully. We'll try better.
Yeah.
We'll try harder. We'll do better.
Sorry,
try
guys,
harder.
I'm not very funny.
I think you're hilarious.
It's who I am.
Yeah. But anyways, one of the things that I take, kind of like a different take on podcasting, which is the value of it is supposed to be about the conversation.
Right.
And if we look at the shift we've talked a lot about culture on the show, and the shift in culture is to be more inclusive. I'll use the word,
sure.
That we want to be more inclusive. This is a way to do that.
Yeah.
But do it in a very, very real way. I don't get very much out of watching a 20-second clip of people jumping up and down and doing a dance or, like showing off.
What are you watching?
I'm trying to stay away from the fact that, you see a lot of jiggling out there.
Yeah. There is, yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, hey, I'm a man and I like it. It's fine. But then
we got to
I'm
rehone your algorithm.
I'm not getting much out of it.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
This is the podcast is where you get an opportunity to explore greater ideas.
Yeah. Go deeper into
you get to go
conversation.
deeper.
Yeah. A lot of what's consumed out there is pretty shallow, pretty quick. Doesn't do much for you. It's mindless. Some of it's not even entertainment, but some of it is.
I see again. It's difficult to clarify that.
Well, and I think too, like you're talking about a saturated space. There are a lot of podcasts right now, but none that we're just having a different conversation. And there are other podcasts that are in this arena, some that I could think of off the top of my head, even some that are happening really close to us geographically that I think are great, man. I mean, this isn't like in competition with any of those things. In fact, I know we're not quite into this, but one of the things I like to see us do more of in 2025 is, have some joint conversations with some of those other folks because I just think there's, some shared experience. There's a little bit of overlap, but then there's also, we're covering areas that maybe they aren't.
This episode of the Original Firefighter Podcast is sponsored by Castle Contracting. Castle Contracting offers commercial and residential restoration, leading the industry in roofing, residential siding, gutters and downspouts, egress window installation, storm damage assessment and repair, and solar energy, saving you money and time. If you want to be treated like royalty, contact Castle Contracting to schedule a free inspection. Call them at 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. That's 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. Serving Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, Castle Contracting has you covered. Your home is your castle. Call Castle Contracting today.
Or maybe they're telling stories that are really specific to a certain city or a certain fire department. It's been really fun for me. I'm a pretty introverted guy. I'm not the guy that likes to be on mic. In fact, I've, made a living for a long time being the guy who's mixing other people that are on mics.
Sure.
So this has been, it's been fun to kind of cut my teeth and be like, okay, that's what my voice sounds like.
It's like you're the Grand Wizard of Oz.
Yeah,
you
totally.
come out from behind the curtain.
Pay no attention.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna go back behind the curtain, right?
It's it's where I'm most comfortable, but I'm actually trying to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So
yeah. And I think that again, and that's a great. We've said that a few times too. That's sort of a little tie into being a firefighter. You are uncomfortable a lot.
Yeah.
In your life, in your career, you're in a lot of uncomfortable situations. So, again, we just try our best to give, our hats off and tribute to what's going on out there. And we kind of skipped over this a little bit, but I want to come back to another thing that we realized is that, we know that the recruiting and retention, is that the word?
Retention.
Is, it's a struggle out there for fire departments.
It is. It feels like a buzzword because every guest that we've had on the show has said recruitment's down, retention is difficult. And it's almost like you can't say one without saying the other. But yeah, it keeps coming up because it's a real issue.
Yeah, and again, that goes a little bit back to the branding and the why, which is to create something that people can be proud of.
Yeah.
And at least try to be a part of that effort.
Something you can wear that says, I support the fire service.
I'm a part of it.
But my mom didn't buy me this t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I actually had to get to a point where I had to tell a family member, I'm like, stop buying me every t-shirt that has, the Maltese cross on it or some nature of that.
Dalmatian pin on a fire
And again,
hydrant.
I love symbols. That I always want to be clear is that I love the symbolic nature of a lot of things. And, kind of goes back to what our brand is about, what the eagle is.
Right.
We were looking at, what should our logo button be?
Right.
And it came down to, there's a brass eagle on every American fire helmet, on almost every one of them. Yeah. And there has been for decades. So
but it's understated. Like it's there, but it's not like,
it's not in your face.
People don't really think about that unless they put that helmet on every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that was, again, it's just interesting to look back and to go sort of line by line, like why did we make those decisions? Why did that, how did this change or how did this come to be? So it's been a great process. One of the things that we're very excited about is we have our own libation.
Oh,
coming.
You're going there.
Well,
this is okay.
Right. we have our bourbon out that's aging.
It is.
It's going to be awesome. I
often sit at my desk and think, what is it doing right now?
I know. Is it multiplying?
I'm just going to go hang out with the barrels for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that even in and of itself is, it's kind of an uncomfortable space. I don't know anything about distilling. I don't, I love.
We've done a lot of research.
But it was great to meet the people at Barnstormers.
Yeah.
And to just sort of, get a feel for how do you get into spirits and how to, making it. And the process is quite simple, as,
right. Yeah.
As Tim at Barnstormers has told us, is that it's really a pretty simple process.
It's not complicated, but it is.
It looks like it is, though. It's like a laboratory out there.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, there's not a lot of variables, but the variables that are at play can change the flavor profile of a bourbon wildly. Yeah. And some that are completely out of your control, like weather, Right. So it's pretty cool. It's going to be a fun experiment.
Yeah.
We think it's going to be great. I mean, one of the things that we really spent some time on with Tim was coming up with a mash bill that we felt like would be something we would want to drink, and something that's a little unique, but not coloring so far out of the lines that it might be a turnoff to some people. So I think it's going to be really great. I'm excited. I know we've got a day coming up here soon where we're going to open the barrel for a minute and just see how things are going. Just kind of wave at it and check in.
Right.
Tell them we're thinking about it.
And that I didn't even know that you could do that. Like I thought like you just left it in the barrel and then when you were ready to
you don't
bottle
want to do
it,
a lot.
Yeah. So the fact that, we get a chance to look into the barrels, along the way.
Yeah.
As the process continues. I think it's just going to be fun to watch that come to fruition, watch our bourbon mature, and become something that, hopefully many people can enjoy.
Yeah.
It certainly will, potentially, be, a game changer for us. I think it really could be that.
Yeah, definitely the start of a new lane for us to be in. It's something that we've enjoyed personally for a long time. You talk about podcasting and YouTube channels, and like, oh my gosh, the whiskey channels that are out there. It's like I could go down a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah,
and I have in the past. And so like we've done a lot of research on it, but man, every time you try something new, it's like the first time is always a little bit like, hope this goes well, because I'm really excited about it,
Here's what got me really interested about us creating our own bourbon brand, which is, our own bourbon under our brand.
Yeah.
Which is, I started to, I became friends with people that really enjoyed it. I myself started to appreciate what bourbon was all about. It's all American.
It is.
And again, because we're kind of in this business with both feet, is we start thinking about like, well, if bourbon is all American and the American Fire Service is what it is, in so much tradition and lore, and we just mentioned our Iron Eagle, which is the logo button, and why did we choose that? Well, it's because it exists on almost every fire helmet in America, and so then you start to think about like, what does it mean to be all American in a positive way?
Mm-hmm.
Just to set aside the divisiveness of things, and then you start to realize bourbon is one of those things that people do come together around.
Yeah.
And I'm stealing a little bit from, Kentucky and, some of the documentaries like Neat, which is a great documentary on Netflix. But it is true. I don't say it haphazardly. It's true that if I open up, I think you gave me a bottle of, you did. You gave me a bottle of bourbon for Christmas.
Yeah.
And
what else?
Yeah, what else would, right? But it is the idea that it's the one thing that comes from the United States. It comes from America. It has to in order to be bourbon. And if I open that bottle, I want to do it with my friends,
right?
Or my family,
it's a very social
friends,
thing,
And so, and that's the way of talking about doing things kind of like in a responsible sort of way. We're not trying to push, like, hey, you should be drinking all the time. And, no, that's not what we want. But we want to have the space to explore things that we think that firefighters themselves and their friends and families would really enjoy. One of the things I started noticing was a lot of my firefighter friends were starting to collect bourbon.
Yeah.
I, go to this guy's house and he'd have, a pretty good, selection of, some of these guys have got some great stuff out there. I'll leave names and what they've got out, but I know that there are some firefighters that I personally know that have got some great collections.
Yeah. I mean, bourbon hunting is a real thing, man.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you're no exception to that. I'm not going to throw your address out, but
I appreciate that.
If I were to go pillage somewhere, it'd probably be your place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So we got some great things happening in that space as well. One of the things I want to just touch on as we start to think about what 2025 looks like is that we set out on a mission at Original Firefighter that we were going to provide some entertainment through the podcast. We were going to provide merchandise that people could be proud of that represents the fire service. They could wear it, display it, however they like. And that when they made a purchase, that part of their purchase, the sale, 5% of that sale would go back to supporting something that would support firefighters themselves.
Right.
We chose to go down, first we started to go down the road of mental health and wellness.
Yes.
And that is that's the category that we intend to stay in the most.
Right.
we were able to support an event here in Rockford, the Red Line Social, and the local peer support team here in Rockford. We're very happy that we did that, and we will continue to do that. And we're going to go higher. We're going to go up to the national level and give back, proceeds from 2024. And we're going to give 5% of all of our sales to mental health and wellness there as well. So we're wanting to be, again, a part of that conversation. How do we help firefighters to be as good as they can possibly be inside and out?
Yeah, and I think that's a big goal for us in 2025 is just increase that give back. I mean, it's a big priority for us. So the more we can give to that, the better. I don't want to skip over also, we were able to take some sales in October, released a limited release beanie.
Yeah.
I want to call it a stocking cap.
Yeah, but a beanie.
a beanie for breast cancer awareness. And we were able to make a donation to an organization that's helping with the treatment and care of those that have been diagnosed with breast cancer. So that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. My wife went through that. So that's something that we'll, each year we'll be giving back to that as well.
4-3 sisters.
4-3 sisters.
Yeah. Yeah. So we intend to, and as we move through the years, we're going to go with local, state, and national support for mental health and wellness for firefighters. We're going to get into some of the cancer treatment and research. Those two things in the context of what they basically how they are detrimental to the fire service is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Mental health, we've already seen and talked about on other episodes that firefighter suicide started to overtake the number of line of duty deaths.
Right.
Back in the late 2010s, this was starting to become a trend a terrible trend. And it continues, and we want to be a part of how do we stop that, reverse it, bring those numbers down to zero. Because again, if you're not well in your head, you can't be well in your heart either.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's the mental side. The other side of detriment to firefighters is cancer.
Yeah.
So,
this was the first year.
Yep.
Right, since 9/11 that more firefighters passed away from cancer as a result of being on the pile, more than those that actually died in the event.
Yeah.
Right?
So 9/11 being a very tragic and unique situation of itself.
Yeah.
But it should highlight the hazards that all firefighters are exposed to.
Yeah, and I guess what I mean is that event. You're right. I mean, it's had a lasting, devastating impact.
Yeah.
It's started some things that are really important to the fire service as well. And we talked about that. But I mean, I think as those stats have continued to grow and as those numbers imbalance have shifted, it just continues to bring attention to the original event, but then also just the ongoing struggle and dangers to those that are serving in the fire service.
There's a lot of ways that you could kind of dissect that, and I won't go down a rabbit hole. I just when we talk about 9/11, we're giving the highest respect to that entire situation.
Yeah,
whether that be in New York City, Washington D.C., Shanksville, Pennsylvania, all of it together, and then to go beyond that, it's not just the impact of those three particular sites.
Right.
It's the ongoing impact of families who have had to live now, decades without their loved ones.
Yeah.
Anyone that was on the planes, anyone that was in the buildings, anybody lost on 9/11, there's somebody out there that is suffering that loss.
And it just reshaped our country as a whole.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the other thing that what 9/11 itself did is it did put the firefighter, the first responder, front and center.
Yeah.
To our public to say this is what they do. Mm-hmm. This is what you're able to count on.
Right.
And then when that happens, then those firefighters should be able to count on us to take care of them when they're sick.
Yeah, agreed.
So That's, again, sort of a little bit of a walk down the path of what we're attempting to do here at Original Firefighter and the ways that we can help and collaborate with others to make things better.
Yeah.
So now as we look into 2025, we've already talked a little bit about, hey, we're going to keep everything going in the right direction. Collaboration. We love to collaborate with anybody that's out there that wants to bring an idea forward. Send us a message at info@originalfirefighter.com. That's info@originalfirefighter.com. And we do answer back. It doesn't just go into
Yeah. I'll say too, for those of you that haven't hit the website yet, there is a contact page. There's a contact form there. So if you would like to be a guest on the show, or somebody that you think would be a great guest for the show, just hit us up there with that contact form. We'd love to get to know some more people. Personal goal for me, I'd like to see, every state in our country represented on this podcast at some point. So, if you're somebody that would like to be on this or have a conversation with us, even remotely, if that's what's necessary, hit us up. Let us know.
That'd be awesome. In 2025, we have a couple of new sponsors coming on, so that's going to be awesome. This episode of the Original Firefighter Podcast is brought to you by Benny's Slots, Wine, Spirits, and Empire Gaming. With 3 locations serving the Rockford area in Roscoe, McChesney Park at Nest, and Cherry Valley at the Harley-Davidson store, Benny's is the place with taste and enough luck to go around for everyone, provided by Empire Gaming. Each location offers fun and entertainment with weekly sports, events, drawings, and live music in a plush environment. As a side note, I recently had my retirement party this past summer at Benny's at Nest in McChesney Park, and they gave us the VIP experience all around. For the best atmosphere, for the best entertainment, head to Benny's for good drinks, good friends, and good times. Stop in at a Benny's location near you today. So here's a great thing that's happening in 2025 for Original Firefighter is that we will be at FDIC. FDIC, yay!
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we'll be there in Indianapolis. We'll be in the Lucas Stadium. And so we want you to come by the booth and check us out, talk with us. We have some interesting things that are going to happen at our booth.
Maybe some giveaways. Maybe a little challenge.
So,
earned
but
giveaways.
It'll be fun.
I guess they're not giveaways if you have to earn them.
Right. Yeah. There'll probably be something.
Yeah.
But make sure and come by our booth, and we'll have more information as we get closer to FDIC. But we are really looking forward to being there.
Yeah, I mean, what is it, like 50,000 people that are going to be there?
Yeah, it's huge.
Something like that.
Yeah,
so it's going to be a lot. And one of our main goals being there this year is just to get to meet some people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we want to increase awareness just so that we can increase our reach and expand the conversation. But hey, we just want to meet people and see what's going on kind of across the country and in the fire service. So if you're going to be at FDIC this year, come look us up.
Right.
We'll get more information about booth number, location, all that kind of stuff when we get a little bit closer to the event. Be watching for that. But
it's gonna be good.
You know what? That's a good segue for me to encourage people to subscribe to this channel.
Yeah.
Don't make it hard on yourself to get the information. Make it easy. Right. Yeah, subscribe. Hey, we know like 70% of the people that watch our episodes aren't subscribed right now, which that's fine. That's probably average, but let's change that.
Yeah, click that button.
Yeah.
Hit the bell, help us out.
Be part of the community.
Yeah, we want to help you out too. And then, we already talked about the way that we're giving back. We're going to continue the 5-alarm give back program.
Yeah.
I think that, that's just going to be a staple of the company. And, again, this would be another reason to come by the booth, at FDIC is come by and introduce yourself. If you listen, if you watch, if you've just heard about us and you want to come by with a podcast episode idea, some kind of collaboration, maybe you yourself, you have something that you're passionate about and it's something that connects with us too. So let's have that conversation at FDIC, or send us a message, leave a message on any of our episodes, or If you use any of the other platforms, we got TikTok, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. For now. Yeah. We'll see what happens, right? That's
2025. Here we go.
Yeah. Now he's saying, the president-elect Trump, he's saying that now he's all warm and fuzzy about TikTok, and he thinks that it played a big part as to why he got elected.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next year.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, here we are in 2025, and things are going to be passed or not going to be passed, but it's all, when he gets in and is responsible for enforcing those things,
right?
All things might go out the window.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah. So, and actually, that's another great way to segue into a couple things as we think about what the next year looks like.
Yeah.
I did. As I was thinking about how this episode was going to come to be and what we were going to talk about, it was kind of hitting me for the first time where I'm going to use round numbers here.
Okay.
I will have lived 25 years of my life before in the 1900s.
Sounds so old,
right?
I hate it when my kids say that. Is that from? They don't even say the 1900s. They say, what do they say? They say like, back when, as though that's like an actual era of time. Back when, you guys, couldn't record what was on TV and watch it without commercials. Whatever it is.
Back when you were on the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, totally. Did you survive the Oregon Trail?
Yeah. Did you get dysentery?
I died so many times.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I will, with this, with 2025 here, I can now say that I've lived 25 years in the 1900s and 25 years in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, you're ancient.
Right? Right.
Look, I'm not far behind you. I actually look like I'm ahead of you, but I'm not.
Yeah. That's why we want you back behind the curtain.
Yeah, totally. Ooh.
Hideous.
Viewership plummeted. I don't know what's wrong with these analytics, guys.
Right. They don't get enough sunlight.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So I mean that in and of itself, and I was having this conversation the other day at actually a ribbon cutting of one of our new sponsors, and she was talking. The conversation was about what Gen Xers, what we have experienced in life,
mm-hmm.
and that goes back to that conversation where, we know what the we'll use low hanging fruit here, the rotary phone, a rotary phone with the dial, right?
And the crazy long
spiral cord.
Yeah.
And so we know what that is. And then we know what, this is, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a paperweight.
Yeah.
Aaron. But we have seen just the exponential growth of technology.
We've gone from
medicine,
maybe having one computer in the home for the household to, everybody's got multiple devices that they can access the internet, which didn't exist when we were kids. It's crazy. It's good though. I like it. I'm happy that I got to experience that time. And then now also get to experience the advances of technology. Although I more often want to go back to what it was prior. I don't know what that is.
You want to go back to vinyl?
Hey man,
you want to go back to vinyl?
If I have a choice, I'm listening to vinyl. Yeah.
As we know in life, everything comes back around.
Yeah.
There's already a resurgence of actual vinyl records and record players, and it's vintage, of course. I
don't have it on today, but more like probably 80% of the time now I'm wearing an analog watch.
Right.
I don't want the thing. I got it on today, but I don't want it, constantly making me aware of what I need to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what I mean. Everything comes back around. I do think that there's a day, coming soon, sooner than later, that, people are going to really want to start getting out there and touching grass again.
Yeah.
And even that.
Dude, that was so enlightened.
Yeah. Well, hey, we try.
I touch grass.
What did you put in my coffee?
It's actually matcha.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But I do think that one of the things I look forward to in 2025, and I'm going to go there. I hope that now that the election of all elections has come and gone, and boy, oh boy, that was a wild ride.
That was a doozy.
That one, I think that's the one that I will probably live the rest of my life, deeply remembering.
Yeah.
And on both sides, how things were going, and the good, the bad, the ugly, very ugly. We've talked about, the assassination attempts and things like that. I mean, that's ugly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Donald Trump is going to be the next 47th president. And here's what I have to say about it is that I am ready for him to deliver on what he campaigned on. It can't be enough that he just spoke a lot of things that we all felt in our conscience of,
right.
I'm ready for some change.
I'm
ready
some change. Yeah.
What I'm driving at is he said the things. Yep. Now he needs to deliver the things.
It has been interesting even since the election to see, okay, with all the talk of the volatility of him as a person, but the response has been like overwhelming confidence in the market.
Right.
Like since almost like 24 hours after, it's like things just started blowing up.
Oh yeah.
In the market. And so there is definitely an underlying current of like confidence in his ability to repeat what he had already done, maybe even more so. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of being raked over the coals, and just the lack of confidence, the inflation, the just the bureaucracy and not calling things what they are. You know, I'm ready for transparency. And I know we've talked at length, and this isn't a podcast about politics, but we've talked at length about, policy versus personality. And we can continue to have that conversation, but policy wise, I am eager to see the fruit of the things that he's floating out there as like Doge.
Yeah. Oh, for
okay.
Sure.
All right.
For sure.
Efficiency. I'm all about efficiency.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So let's see, what is that actually going to look like in reality?
Yeah.
How many, man, I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes to, what is actually going to happen, like the results, just because of, what a challenge it is to get anything done in government. Just be, and
there's an over reliance on government.
Well,
yes,
and
that's
I've said
something
else, but I'm just saying, like the red tape. There's an important value that is at work when we are able to bring differing opinions to the table and really debate things. I am for that system. I agree with that. I like that. What I don't like is when we have a two-party system that is so entrenched in the party that we forget about the policies and the value, and we stop having real conversations, just floating the party line.
Yeah.
And we end up with gridlock because of it. So I'm hopeful that improvements will be made. I'm skeptical about how vast those improvements will be.
Yeah. I think that there's a conversation that can be had here at Original Firefighter, and I'll take the wind out of someone's sails, is that I'll beat you to the punch. Someone out there will say, hey, stick to firefighting and not politics, and be like, hey, I can understand and appreciate that. The thing here at Original
I'm woefully
Firefighter,
underqualified to talk about either, but
so
I can give you my opinions.
So are a
on
lot of
things.
podcasters. The thing at Original Firefighter that I am passionate about is having an intelligent conversation.
Yes, yeah,
and that the conversation, it doesn't need to be PC, it doesn't need to be PG. It can be R-rated. It can be it can have some inflammatory thought to it. That's the part about living, is that there's a lot of things out there in the world that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there's so many conversations that are uncomfortable conversations.
But to avoid them is not to make progress. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I'm hoping from the next administration and all future administrations. Let's not all hang our hat and coat on this one next administration for 4 years. No.
In fact, if you were paying attention,
yeah,
for like a brief moment, there was a reference to 2028 on our site.
Yeah, of course.
That was, it was limited.
Yeah,
if you know what we're talking about.
So it's there. And we're gonna see Vance in 2028. I already know it 100%.
I think you're right.
And the point is that I want to be very clear about is we have conversations on this show that support firefighters, support their family, and that we hope that there's lots of friends around them that just protect the firefighter, if you will.
Yeah.
But we can't just sit here and talk about fires all day long,
right?
Because we're alive, and we don't live in a silo. No. The world is impactful. It comes into everybody's daily lives, and there's a lot of conversation going on, and that does impact actually, firefighters. There's a whole coalition of people out there that want to do away with pensions,
right?
And they want to undermine the Social Security system. They want to undermine basically your legacy benefits.
Yeah.
After giving again a life of service, and yet there's always somebody out there that's ready to pick that off the table from you.
Well,
so
I think
what I'd like to do is say we put a lot on the table here at the show, because this is the kind of stuff that people are talking about at the firehouse table. Right. When they're having coffee in the morning, when you're washing the rigs and you're getting ready for your shift. Sorry, but there are tons of conversations that are happening at the coffee table. They're political. They're passionate. There's some religion. There's some. There's always talk about what you're doing on your off days. Mm-hmm. We're very passionate about that here, and that really should be the focal point of Original Firefighter is what are you doing on your off days. The thing is that when you're not working, life is still happening.
Yeah,
and and there are things that are fighting against us, and that is like I just said, there are people and groups of coalitions of people that are wanting to chip away at whatever they can get from you. And that's a real big problem with the government that we have in place right now is there's constant chipping away of what you have so that the government gets bigger and, people that are in power, they stay in power.
Yeah. Yep.
And I guess my hope is that with Trump being as bombastic as he's been, with Trump saying the thing that offends people, I'm at a point in time where I'm saying to anyone and everyone, and including myself, if you're not offended in life, you're not living life. Because if you're never offended, then you never know when you're satisfied.
Well, I think too,
you're gonna end up being offended by some things, but
that's the thing. Like I think people are going to say things that are going to offend you. The question is, what are you going to do with that? Right? Are you going to take your ball and go home?
Right.
Right. Or are you going to sit and be a part of the conversation? And yes, there are nefarious actors and there are people that are making decisions out of self-service and greed, for sure. But I do think, and maybe I'm naive, call me out on it if you think I'm naive on this, but I do think there are a lot of people that get into public service because they want to improve things. And the challenge is we don't always agree on how to do it. We might agree on the desired outcome, but we don't agree on how to do it. And that's where we should be able to sit in a room and have different opinions about things. And instead of getting offended, take in the information, try to understand the context in which it's being delivered.
Yeah.
And have good debate and have good conversations about, where is this coming from? What is the possible outcome of this recommended solution? We're trying to work towards this. Do we agree on the goal? Is this the path, that we're trying to go towards? And then let's make good decisions. And then when those decisions aren't based on you and your preferred method of executing it. If you can, get behind it if it's working towards the same goal. But man, it's the debate has become so much more about our differences than about our similarities and our vision for where we're going as a people. So I don't know. I just think we can cap this, because I don't want this whole episode to become about politics, because there's a lot to be discussed there. But I do want to say you will see people at this table. You have already seen it, and you will continue to see it this year in 2025, that are coming at the same issues from different places. And I think that's great. We want to encourage that.
Yeah. I would kind of end my thoughts in a few ways, which would be, you don't want to have a government that is always swinging for the fences, trying to hit the grand slam, because you'll have a lot of misses.
Yeah.
And there's my baseball, euphemism, which is, hitting ground balls and, getting to second, getting to third is good.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, having governments that swing so far one way to the other way, that's how you get governments like in France, where they just constantly are turning and overturning their leadership, and it leaves a country in chaos. And we don't want that. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, they're polarized and paralyzed at the same time. Yeah.
So what I'm hoping for in 2025 is I'm hoping for some stability.
Right. Everybody would benefit from that.
Everyone to benefit from stability. I want Trump to not just deliver talking points. I want him to really be able to execute on the things that he says he's going to do. If he's saying he's going to bring down the cost of things, he better do it.
Right.
If he's going to have better trade deals with other countries, that better happen. If we're going to stay out of wars, and we're not going to, we're going to show presence and leadership across the world, that's fine. But let's not get ourselves in another quagmire of bullshit, so I'll just leave it there. One of the things I'm hoping for, and I might get some pushback in this, but God help us. I hope that DEI and all that stuff goes away. It is done nothing but create division with of all of our cultures, which has been the opposite of what it was intended to do.
Again, it just becomes red tape that actually prevents the goal of an organization from being executed well. Yeah. So I agree.
No one out there needs another box to check. Sorry. And that's part of the red tape that's actually been created out of DEI and critical race and all that stuff that was born out of the BLM movements and things of that nature. Sorry, all it did was piss a bunch of people off.
It did.
And I ain't talking about white folk. I'm talking all people out there are like, we're sick of this. Let's get back to some common sense. Mm-hmm. Common sense is treat people the way that you want to be treated yourself. Sorry, go back to kindergarten. Go back and talk to your parents. They were telling you the right thing. Treat people the way that you want to be treated.
Yeah, you're quoting the Bible right now. Well, I don't know if you know.
We're going to cover it all here today.
Actually, earlier than kindergarten.
So yeah, so that's something else that I'm pretty passionate about. And again, I think that there's a lot of firefighters out there that are like, yeah, I'm sorry, but don't send me to another silly class where I have to, be somehow re-educated in the way that I think about people. I'm here to deliver a service and do it with the most, utmost integrity and do it with respect to all people. All people.
Right. Yeah.
In capital letters, ALL, all people with respect. And we'll be fine. We'll be just fine. Just HR, just stay the F out of it.
Oh, man.
So that's what I look forward to.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So other than that, you got anything going on like big trip wise or anything that you're going to be doing this year in 2025?
Nothing planned yet. No. I'd like to get out and travel some for sure. I was going to ask you, what is your thought on New Year's resolutions? Do you make them? Do you think they're stupid? If you do make them, have you thought about this year?
Yeah. Well, I think there's I read a statistic out there that by like day 3 of the new year, there's only like 13% of people that are like sticking.
That's actually higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that by the end of, so I think the statistic reads that by like day 3, there's like only 13% that are following their New Year's resolution. By the end of January, it's like 1%.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's more what I thought it would be.
So, I'm not going to say that they're stupid. I mean, I think that anybody that wants to, make a change, make something, better, more positive in their life, and they decide to do it on July 17th. I mean, fine.
Yeah.
If January 1st works for you and that's where you want to start things out at, okay, that's fine too. I think that,
cause I think what you're talking about is goal setting, and that's always, I agree. That's a good thing. I think it's kind of trendy right now to criticize New Year's resolutions. I think there's some backing to that just because of the numbers. They don't work, but if you're wanting to set a goal, there's nothing wrong with, starting it at the beginning of the year, but it's about how you're going to achieve it and what plan do you have in place, or is it just some like aspiration that you're just pulling out of the air and haven't actually worked towards implementing?
We've had on the show, we've had on, people that are physical trainers.
This is exactly what was in the back of my head.
Yeah. So we've, and at the end of the day, when we have certain conversations, they really do kind of start to come down to some basics. I mean, we just went through a little political, rant there, and I said what I said, and I stand behind it.
Yeah.
I stand behind it though, because I'm driven by common sense. So even if we have a conversation about New Year's resolutions, common sense to me, it says I don't need a particular date to be the start or finish of anything.
Right.
The other thing is that if I'm wanting to set goals, I've been alive long enough to know that if you're going to set goals, make them practical, make them obtainable, and have them to be meaningful. I use the baseball. If you try to swing for a grand slam every single time, you're gonna miss. A lot. I have people that I know that they start out in the new year and they're like, okay, I'm going to do dry January. Okay, all right, that's fine. So good for you. You got 31 days to be dry.
Yeah,
and then 320 days.
Laughing. That's a really good goal. I can imagine the people that I know that would say that.
And that's fine.
Are never gonna.
And that's fine. I would also go a little bit from my point of view, would be common sense would be, how about if I just enjoy a little bit of the things that I like?
Yeah. Moderation.
And then my goal would be to continuously to work out. Yeah. I enjoy it. It's something I enjoy to do. It's a part of most of my daily life is to get a workout in, and not just go through the motions.
Yeah.
I do really put myself into certain places where I go, this is my time to do things that I am challenging myself to do. And I do that more often than not. Like I might do a thing where I'll see a little personal competition. This is a great one. There was I think it was like a 45-day challenge where you worked up to, at the end result was going to be, you were going to do, I think we did like 1,000, I don't know why the numbers were these numbers, but it was like 1,150 squats, 1,150 body squats. And then 560 push-ups or something. But you started out in small increments. You did a little bit. In fact, you went a little bit forward and then back on certain days.
Interesting.
And then you started adding more and more and more until you got to the end. I think it was a 45-day challenge. And on day 45, your goal was to hit 1,150 body squats, 570 push-ups, and all this just kind of crazy numbers. But I did it. And I remember the day 45, and I was like, the next day, like I had been hit by a bus.
I can't imagine, man. I mean, you must have spent your entire day doing that.
No, it actually went by faster than you think. I
Really?
mean, I think everything was done within like 2.5 hours. So anyways, that's just I think
it's kind
of a little
really
silly goal, but I do stuff like that.
But you had a goal, but you had a plan.
Yeah.
To execute the goal. Like it was laid out. And so like you mentioned personal trainer that we had on, that's Phil Toldo that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So episode 10, go back and listen to that if you haven't listened to that one yet.
It is a good one.
And he said something that stuck with me, and this is my, I wouldn't even call it a resolution, but this is my goal for 2025. He said, fall in love with the process. That was the thing that he said that I was like, I just locked that in. I'm like, that is good because, the idea of, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week and I'm going to blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
It can happen, but it's not very sustainable versus like, if you do fall in love with the process, like you said, you like going to work out. That's your time to. So anyway, for me, my resolution is really more of a goal, right? Is fall in love with the process of working out. There have been seasons in my life where I've done that and it's been great. And it's the type of thing where, kind of repetition makes it just easier and easier and easier.
Sure.
Because you're not forgetting between workout days, like, oh, I enjoy this. Like it feels good when I go do that. But he talked about starting with 1 day a week. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, health is fleeting. Yeah.
Get back on the train here.
Health is fleeting, right?
It is.
And
you have to maintain it.
And when you were feeling good at one point in your life, let's just pick a time that you can go back and go, man, I remember when it was a couple inches thinner and a little bit lighter and however you felt. And the thing is that we really do have short-term memory. We do. We don't remember what that felt like and how good that felt. And before you know it, you might end up feeling like, man, I'm a couch potato.
Right.
How did that happen? Why? And this kind of all comes back around. There could be a lot of reasons why. Mental, up in your head, you just don't feel it. We live in a place where, it gets dark at 4 o'clock, 4:30 right now, in the wintertime, and that snow comes in, the sun goes away. It feels like it doesn't come back out for 60 days. You just feel like you're kind of in this gloom.
Yeah. And every February, I'm like, why do I live here?
Yeah. But that's happening to millions of people.
Yeah.
That's a collective thought and a collective feeling of, and you just have to be that person that can break out of that and go, I'm not going to allow that to creep into my mindset when it's cold outside. It sucks. It sucks to put on 3 layers of clothes just to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you that once you get there and you start getting through those first few workouts, you get past a little bit of the soreness and you start to remember like, oh, that's what it felt like for my endorphins to kick in or get the dopamine or whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot of great things that come out of it.
I had a trainer at one point that said, discipline beats motivation every day of the week.
Yep.
Because motivation is doing something when you're excited about doing it.
Yeah.
And discipline is doing it when you don't feel like doing it at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can build a discipline, that's my resolution, if you will, for 2025. Fall in love with the process.
Fall in love with the process. What a great conversation we've had. I've enjoyed everything that we've done in 2024 together. We'll have Rob Lay back on the show with us at another time. And, one of the things we want to make sure that we communicate to our listeners and viewers is that we hope that we motivated you to tune in to what we have to say, have some discipline, and come back and check out what we have to say each week. Check out our website, originalfirefighter.com. Again, merchandise that's on the site that can be purchased, and we always give back for the betterment of firefighters and EMTs, paramedics, first responders. We love the community, and we appreciate your support. Be safe in 2025. Take care.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.